A small glassine bag in a gutter. Pressed into the plastic, a little logo, a crown, or a scorpion, something a buyer can pick out in the dark with shaking hands. 2,000 miles south, in the false floor of a truck crossing a border, 40 kilos wrapped in packages carrying the exact same mark. Same stamp on both. That's not a coincidence. That's a brand. One product, one market, moving through 7 completely different kinds of men between the gutter and the border. And here's the thing nobody tells you when you start hunting them. The man on the corner and the man who owns that truck are not the same problem made bigger. They are different animals entirely. Each one is protected by something different. The corner by how replaceable he is, the man at the top by a border your badge can't cross, and hunting each one looks nothing like hunting the last. 7 men, 7 hunts, same stamp on all of it. Start at the bottom. Level 1, street level distribution. The man on the corner is not hiding. That's the first thing you have to understand about him, because it breaks every instinct you brought to the job. He isn't running, he isn't encrypted. He's standing in the same spot he stood yesterday, selling the same bags, because he is the most replaceable part of a machine designed to lose parts, and on some level he knows it. His protection isn't secrecy. It's that he doesn't matter. So you don't chase him, you buy from him, and you build the case around the one thing he can't help being, which is visible. You run a confidential informant. Usually someone already facing charges, working a sentence off one transaction at a time. Before the buy, you search him, pockets and waistband and jacket seams and the floor of his own car. Not because you distrust him, though you do, but because 4 months from now, a defense lawyer is going to tell 12 people the drugs came out of your informant's pocket, and the only thing standing between that and a dismissed case is you, right now, running a finger down a seam. You count out buy money whose serial numbers you photographed this morning. You send him in. 40 seconds. The seller doesn't look around. Looking around is what guilty men do, and he's done this too many times to look guilty. A hand moves back. Your informant drifts away at the speed of a man who bought nothing, drops into the seat, and presses a small package into your palm. You look at it before you look at him. There's a mark on the plastic. You've seen it on this corner before. And here's the lesson of this entire tier. You could arrest him right now. You have the buy, the wire, the money, the video, and it would accomplish nothing. Take him tonight, and by Saturday, there's a new face in the exact same spot selling bags with the exact same mark. You wouldn't have wounded anything. You'd have taught the men above him that someone's watching this corner. So you don't. You log the stamp, you seal the bag, you let him keep working, because the only thing he's worth is the thread that runs from him to the man who supplies him. And that man is a completely different problem. Beside you, the informant's hands still aren't steady. He asks if he did okay. You tell him he did fine, and you catch yourself reading the parked cars across the lot for the same reason he reads them. It's contagious, the paranoia. You'll carry it for years. You can arrest the corner every night of the week. The corner is not the point. Level 2, mid-level distribution. The man who supplies the corner never stands on it. That's what makes him a different hunt entirely. You can't buy from him, because he'll never sell to a stranger. He deals in re-ups, dropping weight to people he already trusts, and then he's gone. His protection isn't that he doesn't matter. It's one clean layer of distance between himself and the street. So you can't catch him in the act. You have to catch him in the pattern. A gray box goes up on a utility pole across from the stash house, and for 6 weeks it watches one door while you sleep. You pull the corner dealer's phone records, and you don't read a word. You're looking at the shape. One number lights up over and over, always the night before the corner gets fresh product. Then a second number, quieter, that only ever calls the first. You're drawing a diagram nobody in that organization knows exists. Then you sit. The stakeout is a car that smells like cold coffee and a partner you say less and less to. You write the time in a log every 15 minutes so the page isn't empty. A car you haven't seen before backs into the garage, sits 4 minutes with the door down, and leaves. 4 minutes. Long enough to unload, not long enough for anything else. You mark the plate, the make, the time, and you feel the small private thrill of the first thing on this whole camera that means something. You follow that car the next time, and the time after, handing it off vehicle to vehicle so no one tail sits behind it long enough to get made. It leads you to a second stash house, a third. A man who visits all of them, touches nothing, and drives a sensible car in a quiet neighborhood where nobody would look at him twice. That's him. He does his own resupply runs because trusting a driver is a risk, and that small pride is the crack you climb through. And in his trunk, when you finally see it, are the bags, bulk now, not singles, banded together and pressed into every one of them the same mark you logged on the corner. The stamp is how you know the quiet man in the sensible car owns the loud man on the corner. It's the receipt that ties a neighborhood you'd never connect back into one supply. He's careful. He's just not paranoid yet. That comes higher up. Down here, his protection is routine, and routine is a thing you can watch until it becomes a map. He thinks the quiet car and the quiet neighborhood are cover. They're the opposite. A man with nothing to hide doesn't drive 3 different stash houses in a week. A camera never shows you how much was inside. It shows you the rhythm. The rhythm is enough. Level 3. Wholesale trafficking. The man who supplies the re-up moves in kilos, and he trusts almost no one. You can watch him for months and never catch him touching a thing because at this level the product moves through hands he's known for years, in rooms you'll never get a camera into. His protection isn't distance anymore. It's paranoia, earned, professional, and correct. You can't buy from him as a stranger, so you stop being a stranger. You send in one of your own. Your undercover goes in as a buyer who wants weight, then, over months, as a man who might move it himself, who might be worth walking upstairs to meet. Every handshake costs weeks. He can't rush one, because the people whose hands he's shaking built their whole lives around noticing exactly what he is. You run him from a car 3 streets over, and you set up signals before every meeting. One phrase that means I'm fine, another that means come now. And then you sit with the engine off and pray you never hear the second one. You do not get months of this for free. Every week your agent stays under is a week he's one wrong sentence from a shallow grave. And you both know the organization has done exactly that before. There's a dinner. There's always a dinner. He sits in a house he's memorized the exits of, and the man he's building a case against puts a beer in his hand and a baby in his lap. A real one, a nephew. And laughs, and your agent laughs too, and holds the child and learns its name, because the cover requires it. He tells you about it afterward, in a parking lot, in a voice that isn't quite right. Then the buy. He puts down cash and picks up a kilo, and on the wrapping is the stamp, the same mark from the corner bag on a full brick now. You could take it. You let it walk. You watch a kilo of poison leave the room in another man's hands and do nothing, because seizing it here tells everyone above this man that his buyer was a cop and burns a year of your agent's life for a single brick. Here's what this tier costs, and it doesn't cost the org chart. It costs him. A year of a second life comes with a bill that arrives quietly later. He drinks in character and keeps drinking out of it. He carries that baby's name around for the rest of his career, because you cannot unknow a name once the cover made you learn it. You'll bring him home. You won't bring all of him. Some men you can't watch your way to. You have to become someone first, and pay for it after. Level 4. The distribution cell. Above the wholesaler sits a man who never touches product, never touches money, and commits every crime he'll ever commit with his voice. He runs a cell, cartel organized, disciplined, compartmentalized, and his protection is that he is only ever a phone call. You cannot buy from a voice. You cannot follow a voice. You cannot send an undercover to shake a voice's hand. So you go for the wiretap. And they tell you no. Not no forever. No, not yet. A prosecutor slides the paperwork back and tells you to go prove you tried everything else first. The informant who couldn't get high enough, the camera, the man you sent inside. Every patient month is the price of this one tool. And if you skip it, every word the wire catches gets thrown out and the case dies. So you go back out, you bleed for it. Then they let you listen. And listening is a pair of headphones and hour after hour of nothing. He never says a real word. He talks about 10 cans of paint. Did it arrive? Was it the right color? Did his cousin pay? And you sit there knowing you'll have to convince 12 people that paint means heroin. When a call turns personal, his mother, his kid's birthday, a family singing on the line, the rules make you stop. Headphones half off. Wait. Come back on. On and off, through a shift that doesn't end. The linguist beside you has done this longer. She knits and listens and lifts one finger off a needle to flag a call worth marking. You've learned to watch that finger more than the clock. When it doesn't move for 3 hours, neither does the case. Then one night, tired or angry or simply too certain no one alive is on the line, he orders product the way he actually thinks of it, not paint. He asks for the crown. 40 of them by the stamp, because up here the brand is the language. The linguist's needle stops. There it is. The man who never touches a brick, naming the exact mark you first logged in a gutter, tying himself to all of it in 4 seconds. You don't kick a door. You write it down and send one car to sit quietly on the address he let slip, because those 4 seconds are worthless the moment he learns you have them. You'll wait weeks to use it. You'll let the address prove itself twice more on the wire before you ever move on it once. He is completely certain no one is listening. That certainty is the whole reason it works. The higher a man rises, the less he does with his hands, and the more he does with his voice. Level 5. Money laundering. There's a man in this market who has never seen heroin in his life, and he might be the hardest of all to touch. He doesn't move product, he moves proceeds. He's a broker, often several organizations broker at once, and his protection is that he looks completely legitimate. Import company, exchange house, a businessman with a real office and a real accountant, and on paper, a clean life. You can't make a controlled buy from a man who doesn't sell drugs. You can't wire a phone that only ever discusses invoices. There's no brick to seize, no stamp in his hands. He's the one man in the whole trade who could look at that little logo and feel nothing, because he's abstracted one full step away from the thing that kills people. And that abstraction is exactly what you use against him. You can't tie him to the drug, so you tie him to the money the drug made. You stop working alone. The accountants come in, the ones who read a laundering scheme the way you read a wire. The target stops being a man and becomes a balance sheet. You follow one tranche and watch it change shape at every step. Cash packed into the door panels of a car pointed south, unpacked in a warehouse, walked into his exchange house on a strip mall corner, and turned, clean, quiet, legal on paper, into a building somebody can hold the deed to. There's a thing nobody tells you about drug money until you've stood next to it. It's heavy. $1 million in 20s weighs more than 100 pounds. It won't fit in a briefcase. It fills a duffel. It has to physically cross a border at 10 miles an hour in the panel of a car. That weight is the one part of the empire that can't be encrypted, and it's where the broker, for all his legitimacy, finally has to touch the ground. An analyst turns her monitor toward you and puts a finger on one line in a wire transfer. 8 months she's spent inside these accounts, and she's found the single point where clean money and dirty money touch. Once you can see it, you can pull it. Freeze the accounts, seize the houses, choke the front companies, and every organization he launders for feels it at once. Because you didn't take one man's stash, you took the place they all keep their money. The day it happens, there's no raid. A few agents walk into the exchange house with a court order, and the man behind the counter watches his life leave in bankers' boxes, without a shot, without a word. He can tell his clients that sounds like anything but failure. Level 6. Transportation. The weight has to move, and moving it is its own profession. The transportation cell is drivers and load vehicles and stash housekeepers, and its protection is compartmentalization. The courier behind the wheel genuinely does not know who he works for. He was handed keys and an address. He is carrying 20 kilos and the name of no one who matters. These are the most disposable people in the entire trade above the corner, and they are treated exactly that way. Paid little, told nothing, run until they're caught. Catching the car is the easy part. A load vehicle has patterns. The way it rides low, the rental paper, the route that avoids the way stations. And a traffic stop that looks like luck is almost never luck. You find the compartment behind the fuel tank, and inside it, packaged and banded, the same mark stamped into every brick. But the car is worthless. The kilos are worthless. What you actually need is sitting in the driver's seat with his hands shaking, and he is worthless too. Unless you can turn him into a thread that runs upward. So you sit across a table from him. This is the proffer. And it's the most psychological thing you'll do at any level. You lay out the arithmetic of his life. Cooperate, and the number gets small enough to see the far side of. Stay quiet, and it stays whole. Then you do the hardest thing in the job. You do nothing. You let the room go quiet, and the only sound is a man doing the private math on whether the people he's protecting would ever protect him back. The pause goes on longer than is comfortable. He turns a paper cup, a quarter turn on the table, then another. And you watch him arrive at the thing that breaks almost everyone at this table. Not fear of you, but the slow certainty that the people above him built this whole system so that men exactly like him are designed to be caught holding it. He was never protected. He was the protection. He asks if he can see his daughter before it starts. You tell him the truth, which is that it depends on things you don't control. He nods, looks at the table a long time, and starts to talk. Get this wrong, and it costs you everything. Flip the man who lies to please you, the one the defense takes apart on the stand. And you don't just lose a witness, you hand them a weapon. Who breaks and who holds is a read on a person, made in a small room under real pressure, and no database does it for you. The courier is carrying the drugs and knowing nothing. Both of those are on purpose. Level 7, Source of Supply. At the top is the man who owns the stamp. He designed that little mark. It's his brand, pressed into every brick from the border to the gutter, and his protection is the one thing none of your tools can touch. He lives on the far side of a line where your badge is a laminated card. Everything that worked below stops working here. Your warrant doesn't cross the line, so your wiretap doesn't either. And over there, you are not an investigator. You're a foreign government asking another one for a favor. Start with what actually caught the most careful of them, because it was never a satellite. An agent who'd been a Marine before he was ever DEA, posted down there for years, is the one who decides which unit to trust. Not the federal police who leak, but the Marines. Because the difference between those two choices is the difference between an arrest and an ambush. When it finally happens, there are helicopters going into a city that is the beating heart of a cartel, and every man aboard knows he's flying into the lion's den. But the thread that pulled it tight wasn't the aircraft. It was messages. The most careful trafficker alive, a man who once escaped a maximum security prison through a mile-long tunnel with a motorbike waiting at the end, could not stop writing to the people who mattered to him. A woman. Family. The one secure phone in the end always reaches the one person the discipline was never built to include. It always does. That isn't a technical failure. It's a human one, and human is the only kind there is. Everything around that is slow and gray. Treasury can choke his money from a distance. The agents in the embassy can move a request fast or watch it die in a foreign court for years. And which one happens comes down to relationships built patiently long before this case. The man who calls the foreign colonel has had dinner at that colonel's home, knows the names of his kids. That dinner, 3 years ago, is doing more for your case right now than any warrant you could write. Hold on to the phone, because it's the whole lesson of every tier below this one too. The men with the burners and the encryption don't lose to better machines. They lose because staying hidden means being perfect across every contact, forever, and no one who's ever lived is built for forever. A phone on a minute too long, a message to a mother, a brick stamped with a logo to protect a brand, the exact mark that hangs the whole thing in a courtroom 2,000 miles from where it was pressed. He owns the stamp, the border, and every man below him. He does not own the phone in his own hand. Disposition. You could take one man at every level tonight. The corner dealer, the quiet man in the sensible car, the paranoid wholesaler, the voice on the wire, the broker with the clean office, the courier with the shaking hands, and years from now through a foreign court, the man who owns the stamp. And the market would not notice, because none of them was ever the thing. The stamp goes into an evidence drawer, the same mark you first saw smudged on a bag in a gutter, labeled now, sealed, one piece of a life sentence. And tomorrow morning there's a new bag on the same corner with a new mark pressed into the plastic, a different logo, a different lab, feeding down through a new re-up, a new wholesaler, a new voice, a new broker, a new courier, a new man on the far side of the line. That's what every level really means. It isn't a ladder you climb once and finish. It's a market that regrows at all 7 levels at the same time. Because the thing that built it was never any one of these men. It was the demand underneath all of them. And demand has no corner to watch, no phone to tap, no border to extradite it back across. You spend a career learning to hunt 7 different men. The stamp changes, the men change, the hunt doesn't. If this changed how you see what's actually standing behind that little logo, tell me which ecosystem you want hunted, at every level, next.